All right, let's see. Charles here has a question or a statement. I still have a much older version of BloodHound. If I upgrade, will Ninja retain the BloodHound indicator strategies I've been working on? Yes, yes, it will, Charles. The file, I take it you're talking about the BloodHound files that you're creating, and as you can see in this folder here, in BloodHound folder, right? So if we take a look up at the top here, we're in My Documents, you're in the NinjaTrader folder, and then from there inside of Templates, and then there's a BloodHound folder. And so this is where all of your BloodHound files are stored in here, right? So you can see all of the different workshop templates that I create, and they're all stored in here, and they will all work. So you can, whenever you open up a really old template that might be a few revisions old, there's code that runs in the background that will update the old template file to the new template file. So just to be clear on the template files here, new template files will not run in an older version of BloodHound. So every once in a while, the structure of these XML files changes, and you won't be able to open them in an older version of BloodHound. It doesn't change all that often, but every once in a while it does change. So, and you know, I guess just as a good general rule, you know, it's good once in a while to, I guess, take this whole folder and just copy it. You know, just make a copy of it and paste it somewhere, and just make, you know, it makes a backup copy of your whole folder. You know, just like hopefully once in a while when you shut down NinjaTrader, it asks you to back up your data as well. You know, it's just good to back up your stuff, because you never know when you might have a hard drive failure in your computer or something like that. You know, so a good simple way to do a backup is just to leave a flash drive plugged into your USB port on your computer. You know, these files here are very small, very, very small. So for example, let's take a look. Out of all these template files I've got, you know, it's only 2 megabytes, so it's tiny. So you could, any size flash drive, you could just make a copy and copy it to your flash drive, so that way you have a backup copy. All right, let's see. It looks like some more questions or comments come in here. And so, Al, you're not getting an email. Well, actually, yeah, that's right. No, we don't send out emails. We try not to send out emails, you know, unless it's something really important. Jeremy and I don't like spam, and we know you guys don't like a ton of extra emails. So what happens is BloodHound has its own internal check. So when you shut down NinjaTrader and you restart NinjaTrader and BloodHound kind of loads up for the first time, BloodHound does its own check. It will check our website to see if there's any updates and notify you of those updates. Or you can just do a simple check yourself. So if we open up BloodHound here, you can go to Help, and you can just do a check for updates right there. And so, simple enough. But BloodHound does check itself automatically. All right. So therefore, there's no need for an email. All right. So you can see I've got today's lesson running here in the background. So just for fun. something to keep today's workshop interesting. All right, great. Looks like I got through you guys' questions. So let me clean the board here, and I'll begin. And let me pull up the document here. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. And so this was spurred on by a customer question. So if you have questions that you'd like addressed in these workshops, please send them in. Just don't send them in Friday morning, because I typically don't have a chance to look, and I usually don't have a chance to prepare if you send them in Friday morning. So try and send them in at least by Thursday, so that way I usually try and kind of rehearse them on Thursday night, or at least think about them, how I'm going to address it, and so I kind of took these questions that came in, and I also expanded upon it as well. All right, so what I'm going to do is just build this simple MACD entry system, so that way I have something to work with, and then we'll get to the main question here of I was asked, can you demonstrate how to apply some simple exit strategies? So so I built this simple entry system, and it fires off quite a few signals, as you can see, in this chart over here. So it's something good to work with, and then we'll step through and address all of these different types of exit strategies. So these, let's see, these three were the questions that I was asked, and then I added to it with these additional types of exits. So, and these are probably more just to kind of demonstrate various solvers that you would use to create an exit strategy. And I think some of these are fairly common. I think people are fairly commonly using the parabolic SAR. And when I was playing around, I found this moving average looks pretty neat. And I think the T3 is probably fairly common. And this N bars up and down will, let's see, address, let's see. Oh, that's right. Now, I thought this N bars up and down would address this first question, but I was reading this first question wrong. It doesn't, but I just thought it was neat, and I thought I would show this indicator to you guys, because I know I've seen a number of questions where people want a signal when you get so many down bars in a row or so many up bars in a row, and this NinjaTrader indicator calculates that for you. So it makes it a little easier to determine when you get a number of down bars in a row and up bars in a row, and it has some extra settings in it, so you can get a little more technical using this indicator. All right, and just another crazy indicator I found that I thought I would demonstrate. All right, so all right, let's get to building the system. So let me pop this over here. All right, whoa, look at that. We had quite the sell-off this morning, and it looks like the market is starting to recover now. I'll pull my ES chart over here. Yeah, it's recovering a little bit. This chart here looks a lot more dramatic than it actually is when you look at a bigger picture. But, all right, so first thing I need to do is put BloodHound on the chart. So here's a little tip for you guys. If you just click on an indicator, or basically click in this window, and if I hit the S key, see, it dropped me all the way down to the S's real quick. If I hit the Z key, it'll drop me all the way down to the Z's instantly, and I could hit the S key again, and it moves me up to the S's again. So type in the key, you know, the first letter of the indicator you want to find. It's kind of a nice shortcut. So let's add that in here. All right. And oh, I'm going to make a little quick change here. I'm going to put this on Lime, and it shows up a little bit better on a black screen. All right. And let me move this up to the top. Oops. Great. And I'll minimize all this. All right, so the system we're going to build here, the first main signal is just looking at the MACD line, just crossing over the 0 line. Right, so this point here and this point here. Okay, so
order filled.
All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give our template a name, today's name. And let's see. All right, let's just find the previous one and change the date on it. Okay. There. All right. As you guys all probably know by now, I like to work with BloodHound on one side of the screen and my chart on the other, and then I can just flip back and forth quite easily. All right. And today I'm just going to start off and working on the logic board there. So, all right. So, just give this a name, entry MACD. And so my first system rule is just the crossover of the MACD line. So let's plug this solver in, and all right, name my solver, and let's plug the indicator in here. So even in this window, I can just hit the M key and it drops me down to the MACD. Made that simple. All right, so we already have the MACD plot selected here. So just hit OK. And the second part is I'm crossing the 0 line. So I need to change this type setting here to an absolute value. You can see I have absolute value or the closing price, right? I could use volume, I could use swings. You know, essentially these are kind of shortcuts here. You know, the volume, you know, you could use the volume indicator with then, you know, so if you're using the indicator setting, I could just go and change this to the volume indicator. But this is just kind of a convenient little shortcut here for you. But for now, I'm going to use the absolute value of the 0 line. And as soon as I did that, all right, there's our signals. Great, a short signal and a long signal. All right. And the next sub rule here is I'm looking for the histogram to cross the 0 line. So let's do that. And what I'm going to do is take a little shortcut here. So I'm back on the solver tab. I'm going to copy this down, change the name to the histogram, and then go in here and change my plot. So I'm going to look at the histogram, or as NinjaTrader calls it, the difference. This is the difference. So mathematically, it's the difference. You're subtracting the MACD from the average, and that's how you end up with the histogram. So I'll just change the plot. Then I need to go back onto my logic board, and then under existing nodes here, we can now see the new solver that I created. Drop that down, and we'll take a look at it. And there we go. We can see the histogram crossed up for a long, and it crossed down for a short. So long again, short again, long, okay, so on and so forth. All right, so that's the secondary rule. And the next rule is when the histogram creates an inflection point at the zero line or near the zero line. So what I'm talking about is like this area right here, where the histogram reverses near the zero line, like that area, and even this area might work as well. So areas like this is kind of like the secondary signal trigger. So that's going to take two requirements. Now I'm not going to be looking for it to inflect exactly on the zero line, because that probably almost never happens. I'm looking for an inflection near the zero line. So in looking at the values of the histogram, or I'm sorry, the values of the MACD panel here, right, I can see it's going from 0 to 1, even all the way up to 3. So the relative values here are in the single digits, and that's for the NQ. Now, these values on the MACD change depending on the instrument. So if I change this instrument to the Japanese yen, the value here on the MACD would be significantly different. I think it's like in the 0.0001 area, something like that. It's like the values start working in like the thousandths or the 10,000ths range versus the 1 or 2 unit range. So last night I just decided, I'll just look for like 0.1. I'll look for these inflection points around 0.1, just an arbitrary decision for today's lesson. So that's going to take two solvers. Let me back up, two solvers. So I need a threshold solver to find out when the histogram is close to the zero line, and then the inflection solver as well to look for that reversal point. So let's work on building the threshold first. All right, and change this over to the MACD. Oops. And we're interested in the difference plot or the histogram. And for now, right, the thresholds are just all set at 0. So just for a demonstration, if I put a 1 in there, and I put a 1 down here, so at E, remember E is 0, so at 0 or less on the short output. So we can see that right when the histogram is below the zero line, we're getting a short signal out of that solver. And then when the histogram is above the zero line, we're getting a long signal. So we're not quite interested in the zero line. What we're interested in is 0.1 above and negative 0.1 below. And remember, these threshold values have to be in descending order. So I can't have a lower number above above a previous or the next value. So I need to change this as well to 0.1 at least, and I need to change this to negative 0.1. So now these numbers are in descending order. And if we take a look at this now, it's actually working the opposite of what we want. So we're interested in when the histogram is near the 0 line, but right now we're only getting an output when the histogram is above, or basically away from the 0 line. So when the histogram is above this 0.1 value or below negative 0.1, that's when we're getting an output. So we actually want the opposite. So let's see if the invert works here in this case. And the invert doesn't quite work because we can see when the histogram is above the 0 line, we're getting a short output. And we don't want that. We want no output. We only want an output when the histogram is near the 0 line here. So, so that doesn't quite work for us. Let's turn off the invert. And so what we need to do is essentially work with our threshold values here. So we don't want a long when we're at 0.1 or greater. So I'm going to turn this off. We do want a long output when we're at 0. Let's turn this on. And then also let me turn off this one, this short down here. So let me put this at 1 as well. All right, so we're getting a little closer here. But we're only getting an output essentially when the MACD histogram is essentially at 0, at the 0. So here, let me scale this up to exaggerate. So you can see when the histogram is very, very close to the 0 line, we're getting a signal out of that. But we want a signal all the way up to the 0.01 area. So I'm going to put a 1 in here. And we also want an output at the negative 0.1 as well. So you can see I set the long and the short outputs to give us an output when we're at 0.1, at 0, and at negative 0.1. So we can see here BloodHound is giving us a long and a short output, right? So this solver is not telling us, it's not telling us the direction that we want to trade. This solver is just identifying when the histogram is near the 0 line, or basically within the 0.1 to negative 0.1 range. So it's just saying, hey, we're close to the 0 line here, as defined by our threshold values here of 0.1. And the solver that's going to tell us the direction of the trade is actually the inflection solver. So remember, it's this inflection point right here. So if I put a little diamond, right, it's this inflection point right here that we're actually interested in. We're looking for the histogram to reverse and turn back down when it's close to the 0 line. So this is what we're actually interested in.
Order filled.
And you can probably tell that actually this didn't quite meet our requirements, because this value here is at negative 0.14. So this area didn't quite meet it. And neither did this area here. So we'll find we'll find it on the chart. We'll back it up and look for these points. So for now, let's just build the inflection solver, because I know I have this threshold solver working the way I want it to now. At first, let me name this correctly. Oops, actually it's the histogram. Okay, histogram, let's see, 0.1. I can actually put my threshold value in there. Or actually probably more appropriate, let me put 0 line there. All right, so let's move on and work on the inflection solver here. So the second part of this condition, looking for these reversal points here, is the inflection solver. And second, oh, looks like Jeremy needs the data feed. All right. All right, so to get these reversal points using the inflection solver, and I just need to set up the MACD indicator, and we want to look at the difference plot. All right, so we can see all of these reversal points being marked here now. Pretty simple enough. Okay, now the next step is to use some logic here to create these different subset, or these different subsignals here. So entry B down here, right, requires logic. So we have to use an AND node to join these two solvers together, to join this threshold solver and this inflection solver. So let me drop an AND node down here. All right, and let me pull up the chart so we can take a look, and then connect the inflection in. And let's see here. All right. And I'm just going to check. Okay, yep. I was looking at this bar right here. I thought the inflection might have been 1 bar sooner, but it's not. Okay, great. So now the next thing, the next part is when the MACD is below the 0 line, I don't want a long signal, right? I want to stay short when the MACD is below, when the MACD line is below the 0 line. So I need to add another filter in here for that. And let's see. So I'm going to this is what I'll do. I will copy this solver. Yeah, I'll copy this solver that's looking at the histogram and switch it over to looking at the MACD line. So this solver is now going to be looking at the MACD line, and I just want to check when the MACD is above and below the 0 line. So let me clear all this out. And set my outputs right. Right, so when the MACD is at 0, right, remember A is going to be 0 or greater, So in other words, when the MACD line is above the 0 line, I want a 1 on the long side. And for the shorts, I want a short when the MACD line is at 0 or less, or below the 0 line. And the next thing I need to do is change the plot here. I need to switch this over to look at the MACD line. All right, so let me add that new solver on the board here. And then we plug it in and take a look to make sure it's working right. So great, yep, you can see when the MACD line, the lighter blue line, is below 0, we have shorts. And then as soon as it crosses above the 0 line, we have longs. So now with that, that can act as my filter. So back to this, right? So what I'm trying to do is when the MACD line is below the 0 line, I want to filter out these long signals. And then over here, you can see there's quite a few short signals when the MACD is above the 0 line, and I want to get rid of those short signals. So if we take this and also connect it into the AND node, there you can see it acted as a filter. And so now we only have long signals now when the MACD is above the 0 line. And now we only have shorts when the MACD is below the 0 line. So that takes care of rule B, I guess. So the next thing is, let's take a look at the histogram crossover. And let's see which one. It's this solver here. Let's take a look at that. And so we can see here, once again, the MACD is above the 0 line, and we've got a short signal here. And so we don't want those short signals when the histogram crosses down below the 0 line. We're only interested in this long signal here when it crosses above the 0 line. So we need to filter out these shorts when the MACD is above the 0 line, and the opposite. So we need to get rid of this long signal when the MACD is below the 0 line. So once again, we can use this solver here to filter out some of these signals. So let's create another AND node, or drop one down, connect it up, and then so watch this area over here. You'll see all the short signals are going to disappear as soon as I connect this node up. There you go. So now we have longs only. And that's because if we take a look at this solver, so we're looking at this solver here, right? This solver has long signals only when we're above the 0 line. And so that's how we filter out all of the short signals. All right, so this, and I can name these AND nodes as well. Let's see, so this is the histogram 0 line crossover. Very cryptic there on my name. And this one is the histogram inflection near the 0 line. So that's what that signal is. And then we have the main signal here of the MACD crossover. And we now need to take, so we have 3 different signals here, and we need to join them all together into one output. So I'll just use the OR node. And just connect them all into the OR node. And there we go. Now we've got plenty of entry signals to work with. All right, so we have the entry system built. So now we'll move on to working with these exit strategies. All right, so we want to exit after 5 candles, or if the trade loses more than 20 ticks. So, all right, so one part, so this first part, exit after 5 candles. So this will be built in BloodHound. And this next part, if the trade loses more than 20 ticks, well, that part can be handled by Raven. So we can just use the stop part in Raven and create a 20-tick stop. And it looks like we want a trailing stop as well. So, all right, so let's work on exiting after 5 candles. And this was interesting to practice last night. So we need to exit after 5 candles of essentially every entry point. So to build that, we have to know what our entry bars are, where our entries are. So then we can start counting 5 bars later. So what I have to do is I have to take our entry system and copy it. So that way I have these entry signals to work with. So that way I can start counting bars and exit after 5 bars. So I'm just going to use the copy button up here to copy this entry signal. And you'll see it just made a copy of it. So we have the original up here and then the copy down here. And let me rename this. Now, so this will be our exit. And just call it exit 5 bars. Or exit at 5 bars. And so I'm going to need some more work area here because this is going to get a little long. So it's a little tip here about grouping nodes and moving nodes. So if I have a group selected here, right, you'll see these rectangles show up. And what I find is that when I'm working with people, sometimes they're in this group selection mode, identified by the little squares on the outer edge, and then people start trying to link leaders, right? So they move solvers out of the way, and then they try to link stuff, and so they'll come over like to this solver and try and link stuff, and they find that, well, they can't because you're still in this group mode or this moving mode. So just to get out of this mode, just click off to the side somewhere, and now you can see the little squares disappear, and also the colors get darker as well. So you can see the colors get a little brighter when you're in this move group mode. So if I need to start connecting leaders, I have to click off, get out of that mode, and then you can see I have a leader here now. So, all right, little tip of the day. All right, so let me kind of talk about the theory. So what we need to do, the way I'm going to approach this is I have the signal, and so I'm going to extend every signal forward 6 bars. And I'm going to extend it forward 6 bars, and then I'm going to block the first 5 bars. And then I'll have to reverse it, because remember, to to exit a short here, so I'll be working with this signal here. Let's see. So I'll be working with this short here. So in order to exit this short, I need a long signal, right? I need the opposite signal to exit. So that's what Raven requires, is the opposite signal to exit. So I will extend this short signal out by 5 bars or 6 bars, I forget which. I'll just take a look and see what I get on the chart, and then I'll have to reverse it to get along. So that's going to take multiple function nodes here. So first, let's drop the extender signal down here. Oops. Connect this up. Connect this up. And I'll make BloodHound a little bigger here. All right, so now we can see we have the initial bar, and we have extended out 1, 2, 3, 4 bars afterwards. Let me make the chart a little bigger. Make the bars a little bigger here. Okay, there. That should be easier to read. All right, so I want to extend, I think, 1 more bar out. I'm going to take this question to meaning, counting 5 bars after this signal. So let me change this extender to 6 bars. So I'm going to extend it out 6 bars. And also I'm going to turn off all of these resets. Make sure all of these resets are set to false, just so I don't get any unexpected results. Okay, I set that to 6. And okay, 1. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars afterwards. Okay. Now, in my explanation, I said I was going to block the first 5 bars. And so you're probably thinking I'll use the signal blocker, but actually I don't want to use the signal blocker because, or I'll just demonstrate this real quick. And also let me put a marker. So this is, right, so this marks the first signal bar here. So let me connect up the signal blocker. And right, you can see the signal blocker was designed to block out the signals afterwards. But we need to block, for our exit signal, we need to block the first entry signal. Right, so the signal blocker doesn't work in this case. So what we're going to use is, all right, oh, looks like my computer's running a little slow. So what I'm going to use is the counter, the signal counter node here as soon as my VMware catches up. I'm going to take a look at my task manager here. And, oh, yeah, it looks like something is caught up here. So, NinjaTrader's doing something. What are you doing, Ninja? All right, well, let's just, I don't want to wait around, so let me just kill this and get it going again. All right. So that just kind of demonstrates the, the perils of computers, and all software in general. You never know when something might lock up on you. So that's why NinjaTrader recommends that you never leave your fully automated trading strategy unattended. And of course, we recommend the same too. And also, NinjaTrader has built in, oh shoot, it didn't save my workspace. Oh well. Let's see. Oh, darn. I lost all that. All right, let me take what I built last night, and yeah, this will save me some time. So I'll just work with what I built last night. All right. And all right, let me just get myself a little prepared here. And let me put this name back. So I had it MacD. All right, and I'm going to change the name. So just overwrite the previous file here. And all right, since I loaded up any different template file, I need to hit F5 just to refresh the chart data. Okay, great. And so I'm just kind of looking at my signals here. Great, everything looks good. And all right, so what we're working on, let me make a copy of our entry signals. There. And name this again, like exit at 5 bars. Okay, let me move those guys out of the way there. All right, so it's dropped down the signal extender. Plug that in there, and I remember we needed 6 bars, not 66, but 6. Okay, let's turn that reset off. Okay, so there's where we were at. Okay, great. So we got all these signals extending forward. Now we just want the very last signal, which is 5 bars after, or 5 bars later. So that's where we left off. All right. So I kind of demonstrated how the signal blocker didn't give us what we wanted because it left the first signal but we actually want the last signal. So we're going to use the counter, the signal counter. So you can see that stringing these all up is going to get kind of long here. So let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so the signal counter. There is a workshop video back in, I believe, the 1st of February on the signal counter. And let's see, so let me just kind of work my way down here. So what do I want to count? So I want to count incoming signals. Count up to, I believe, I want to count up to 6. And let's see where. Let's see. Oh, where'd my little marker go? Hold on. I need to find my signal that we're working with. Oh, I see. I even lost some data. Yeah, all the data that was coming from my data feed. See what's, So that's what happened to NinjaTrader. I guess when I got disconnected. Let's see when. Yeah, so my data. Okay, so this is 2 o'clock yesterday. You can see all these little trade things going here. So that's what happened with NinjaTrader locking up. All right, so let me find a new spot here I want to work with. All right, I like this spot right here. So let me mark this. And all these auto pull down things. Okay, there we go. Need to make my chart a little bit smaller. There. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is make the bars a little wider. There. Okay. Great. So we've got the first bar marked, the actual signal bar marked. And let me just kind of run through this again. And we have the signal extender, extending our signals out, and then the signal counter. And there, so you can see we have a signal now on our 5th bar out. Let's see, let's make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, our 5th bar out. And you can see it right now, that signal counter is in an analog mode. Right. So let's clean that up. And you can see the output style is this analog mode. So let's switch it over to a digital mode. And there. Now it's very simple. So our signal was here, which disappeared now because, remember, we're working on building an exit signal, so we obviously don't want to see our entries on this exit template. Right, so this is, we're building an exit template. So this marks our entry, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars later. We have a signal that will become the exit, but it's not an exit yet because it's still a short signal. Remember, we need a long signal, a long output to exit this short signal that's on this bar. So the last step is to reverse it. So we can use the inverter as a reversal. So let's connect this up. Connect this up. And so you can see the inverter, in its default mode, it's literally inverting everything, right? So we have a long signal here. in place of the short signal. And where there was no signal, now we have both long and short. So we need to change things around. So what we want to do, we're using the inverter because it has a swap long and short. So I'm going to set that to true. And so it swapped everything. So now we have a short instead of a long before. So the next step is we don't want anything to be inverted. So we need to turn off these inverters. So this invert, so right, we have an inverter for the long side and an inverter for the short side, as you can see here. So we turn both the inverters off, and there we go. So now this inverter becomes a reversal. So now we have a long signal to exit this short signal. So there's our daisy chain, and that is our rule. So we got an exit after 5 candles. And I'll demonstrate the 20 tick stop loss once we kind of build a few more of these, and we'll put it into Raven. Let me bring this back up here. So once again, this here, exit if losing more than 20 ticks, well, that's going to be the same thing as what we have up here. And then the second part is, or the A up slope. I'm not sure what the A was supposed to be, but I was making an assumption here. The up slope is no longer sloping up. So I'm taking that to mean like if you have a moving average. So I'm going to take this to mean that, like, say, like if you're in this case, right, we're short here. So if we have a short and one of our indicators is no longer sloping down and it starts sloping up, we want to use that as an exit. So let's see. Let's see. I have the T. Let's see. I have the T3 on here. How about if I just put? It's going to use the T3 to build an exit. So let me just drop an SMA on here. Make that white. And let's see, a 14 period. Yeah, I'll just go with that. So we'll use the inflection point will be the inflection point of this SMA here. So as soon as this SMA reverses from sloping down to sloping up, we'll use that as our exit. All right, so we're building a new exit here. So let's see, exit. So this is like exit number 1, and so I'll just start with a new one here, and we'll call this exit, and it's going to be an inflection. This will be our number 2 exit. So let's drop an inflection on here. And yeah, so this solver already, all the solvers default to an SMA 14. So this indicator is already set up for us. And we can see here, when the moving average turned up, we got this long signal here at the inflection point, or the reversal point of the moving average. And so that's it, basically. Done. It was that simple. Oops. So, unless this A was supposed to be an indicator name, so maybe, Tony, if you don't mind clarifying, if I made a mistake, Tony, if you could clarify what you meant by A, or maybe it's just a typo. So I just substituted A for the SMA, sloping up. And also what I'm not quite clear about is it says, so, or the, let's see, MA, maybe it was supposed to be MA for moving average upslope, is now no longer uptick. I guess you mean sloping up. So this, the inflection, right, it's only going to work when the slope actually starts sloping up. You know, if the slope flattens, it's not going to give you an exit signal yet. So maybe you would want to exit when your indicator flattens as well, instead of waiting for an uptick. Maybe you might want to exit out a little sooner. So let's work on creating a condition when the indicator actually flattens as well. Flattens or slopes up. So here, let's mark this guy. And so I'll mark it with a dot. So this green dot is the inflection. So yeah, there we go. I'll mark it on the indicator. And so we'll work with the comparison solver. Not comparison, sorry. The slope solver. Let's work with the slope solver here. And you can see that the slope solver gives us most of what we want. However, when the indicator is flat, you can see there's actually no signal here. So we need to find a way to generate a signal when it's actually flat in this area here. And there is let's see, look back period, change the slope, no inflection. All right, so if we set this to 1, and oh, I'm looking at, oh, I have the wrong solver selected. Let's look on the slope. That makes more sense. Okay, this is what I was looking for, and I was a little confused before. All right, so we want, so on the slope solver we have this value at slope 0. So I can set that to 1, right? So these areas that have no output, there's no output because there's no slope, right? So the slope solver obviously requires the indicator to be sloping at least a minimal amount, even if it's imperceptible to the eye. Mathematically, there's a minor slope, but when there's no output, that means it's completely flat. So I can put a value in here. I can set this to output of 1 when we are completely flat. And there you go. And so now you can see this will exit both long and shorts. So it'll exit everything when it goes flat. Right, so we get an exit 1 bar sooner. So the inflection exited us right here, and the slope solver would exit us 1 bar sooner, right there with that long output. All right, let's move on. I'm gonna have to move through this pretty quickly now. Okay, so here's the next one. So once again, we just have a 20 tick trailing stop in this. The next part is or if a corresponding Bollinger Band slope up is now flattening. So let me get the Bollinger Band on here, and thicken these lines a little bit so you can see them better. All right, so we can see we have the Bollinger Band on the chart now, the gray lines. And let me pull up BloodHound and put it back on. We're going to put it back on it on the entry signals. All right, so let's work with this short signal again. Right, so I think what we're wanting to find out here is when the Bollinger Band slope is now flattening. So it's flattening, not flat, but flattening. So in other words, when the slope, well, yeah, quite literally begins to flatten, or when the slope begins to, it's not pointed up, but begins to kind of start turning up. And so let me, oops, I don't want to copy that. So I'm going to make a new logic board, and so this is going to be our flattening slope exit. All right, so exit flattening slope, and this is number 3. I'll put a 3 on there. So what we're analyzing is a change in slope. We're looking for when the slope begins to change. So let me connect that up, and I'll demonstrate how this guy works. So let me put the, so what I'm going to use, I've decided that with short signals, I'm going to use the lower band. I'm going to look for the lower band to begin to flatten out to exit short signals, and we'll use the upper band, so when the upper band begins to flatten out for long signals. Okay, so I'm using the lower band to exit my short signals. So I need a long signal to exit my shorts. So I want to analyze the long side using the lower band, and the upper band I want a short signal to exit my longs. And let me open this up so you can read the description. All right, so you can see you have 6 different parameters here. And you know, right now when you look at this, you can see that when the Bollinger Band begins to kind of flatten out here, you can see there's a little bit of a long signal here. And then as it flattens out more, the long signal gets a little, here, let me stretch this out. This long signal gets a little higher, and I probably need to stretch this out so you can exaggerate the slope. Excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice again. So if we look at the slope down here, we can see it's sloping down pretty dramatically, and then it tapers off a little bit right here. Let's see if I can exaggerate it a little bit more. There we go. So you can see that it's beginning to flatten there a little bit. It looks like it kind of steepens down again a little bit, and then flattens out again. Then it steepens up. And probably judging from the output here, how the output's increasing, I'd say this is slightly flattening compared to 1 bar back until it finally reverses. So what this is doing is, when you have a steep slope coming down, and on the first bar here, where it begins to flatten a little bit, we're getting a partial output. And then if we move 2 bars afterwards, what's happening is it's flattening out. Actually, I think it got a little steeper, and then it flattened out again for the 2nd bar. And so then the long output got a little steeper. And that's kind of how we designed it by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe out all the outputs, and we can just look at the output sections one at a time. So what we're interested in, if we read the description here, now we're not interested in the in direction. We're interested in the opposite direction. So because we're sloping down and we're interested in getting long signals out. So if we put a 1 there and a 1 there, you can see that right here, when the slope begins excuse me, when the slope begins to flatten out, we're getting our exit signals. Here, let me set this to 0 again. So in parameter number 5 here, opposite direction but turning. So but turning means, so think of that as the first bar that begins to flatten out. And as long as it stays kind of flattening out, then you're still going to get your signal out. But it looks like right here on this section right here, let me widen this out a little bit more. Oh, actually that kind of made it worse. Really want to try and exaggerate the slopes on this. Yeah. So on this bar, oh wait, let's see. Let me put 1 in here just to make sure. Okay, yep. So this output is outputting on the initial bar that begins to flatten. And then when you get a 2nd bar, that's also flattening as well. That's what the 4th one is doing. The opposite direction, but greatly turning. So in other words, it's flattening out for a 2nd bar in a row. So it's beginning to turn even more. So I'm going to turn number 5 off. So now we're looking at only the opposite direction but greatly turning. So what this is marking is the 2nd bar of flattening. So you got this initial bar that began to flatten here, and then you got a secondary bar that began to flatten. And let's see, Let me see if I can find some other examples here. Oops. Sometimes it's tough to find a good, clear example. Here we go. I think this makes a good example. So you can see the slope coming down, and then you can see it's beginning to turn right there. Yeah. So I think that makes a good example. All right, let me set this to 0 here and set this to 1. And yeah, that's not what we want. So if I set number 5 to 1, you can see it's marking right the first indication of when it's beginning to flatten. And if I put a value on number 4, then it's marking the continuation of the flattening as well. So that's what the change in slope solver is doing, is it's analyzing the it's analyzing when the slope begins to kind of make these turning points. So it'll mark, so you can see it's even though the lower band is still sloping down, but it's beginning to flatten out. And we can get this to be marked when it's beginning to flatten out. And let's see, let's take a look at some and yep, here we go. So right here, so if we were long, we can see the upper band is beginning to flatten out, and it's marking it short to exit any kind of, if you had a long signal in here, because the upper band is beginning to flatten out. So, all right, quickly running out of time. So I wish I could have spent more time on this. I know it can seem a little confusing at first. So there is a workshop video on this solver, right? So if you go to the documentation page for this solver, there's a video there for it on a previous workshop. All right, so let me work on a couple of others here. Yeah, so this is a popular indicator, the parabolic SAR, and that is the red hash line here. So the red hash line is the parabolic SAR. So let's build that one real quick. So we have an exit of the, okay, turn my alarm off. So we have an exit of the parabolic SAR, and I believe that was exit number 4. Yep, exit number 4. Okay. And for this one, I know there's kind of two ways we can do this. You can see that essentially NinjaTrader's indicator on this works beautiful for this because it only has one plot. And so the single plot essentially is crossing price. So we can use a crossover on this. Or we could also use a comparison on it as well. So let's take a look at a crossover first. Connect that up. And so I'm going to be looking for the closing price here. So I just changed my type to the closing price. I'm going to be looking for the closing price to cross the parabolic SAR. So we'll change this indicator over to the parabolic SAR. And you can see the NinjaTrader's only has one plot. So it works really good. I know there's some other modified indicators of this out there that use multiple plots so they can color it and make it look pretty and stuff. But they don't work well because it divides the plot up. It divides the plot into two different plots, so you don't ever get a crossover. So let's take a look at that. So you can see quite simply enough here. I'm going to fade this indicator into the background a little bit. All right, great. So you can see as soon as price crosses up above the parabolic SAR, right, you're getting a long signal, which will exit your shorts here. And the other way to also look at it, this will work as well, is the comparison solver. So I can compare the closing price to the indicator. Let's put the parabolic SAR in there. And this will work as well. The difference between these two is that the comparison solver gives us continuous exit signals. So if for some reason your system decided to go short again in this area, the comparison solver would exit your short signal immediately because these would all be looked at as exit signals during this whole section here, during all of these bars. So you could kind of think of this using the comparison solver as kind of like a safety, implementing a certain amount of safety into your system in case you had some kind of unforeseen glitch in your system that decided to go long. Say like on this down bar right here, for some reason your system decided to go short right here, but you really didn't intend to go short. It was just an oversight. Then you would get exited immediately afterwards because of all of these long signals. If all these long signals are in your exit in Raven, then Raven would use all of these to exit any short position. Let's see. Okay, so here's kind of another common, a common stop theme. So I have this neat Anna indicator, and let me make it a little brighter. Let's see, dodge blue ought to work. So we have the blue squares here. So we can use like a moving average. This is kind of a neat moving average. It looks good as some kind of a trailing stop. So I'm going to create, let's see, what is this, number 5? Yep, number 5. So, all right, exit. And this is the ANA, and it's called a moving median. So I'll just do MM for short, and it's number 5. And once again, I could do a crossover, or I could do a comparison solver to create an exit. So let me use a comparison here. So once again, I will compare the closing price versus the indicator. So it is this, there we go, the ANA moving median. And all those ANA indicators I found up on Big Mike's. So they might be on NinjaTrader's download section as well, I'm not sure. And so one of the unique things about this is you can see there's this blank area. So right now the closing price actually equals that moving average. So it won't exit you yet, which might be a good thing, or it might not. It's actually going to wait for the closing price to cross the indicator, to break above it. So like here was one instance where exiting actually was a good thing, right? So if you were long, you got this pullback. Price did kind of punch through it, but price did move back up again. I guess to give you a secondary chance to get more profit out of this. But, you know, looking at the charts, it looks like this is pretty rare. All right, so anyways, I'll let you guys analyze that later on. And let's see, let me jump down to the N bars here, show you this indicator. So that's this indicator down here, this N bars. So if I take a look at it, so this is a NinjaTrader indicator. So you can pull up the help documentation on this and read more about it. But essentially what it does is this is N bars down. So it's going to be counting so many bars down. And right now it defaults to counting 3 bars down. And then you have some various kind of filters here. So I'm assuming this one, it says bar down, it's set to true. So that means, I think that means that the bar actually has to have a body in a down direction, I believe. And then you have a lower high and a lower low. You know, I think those are kind of self-explanatory. And then of course the N bars up indicator is just the opposite, right? So we're counting up bars. So if we look at, let's mark this here. So we can see down here, the plot down here, this is our first down bar that's being marked. And, you know, if you look, here, let me, there. Wanted to turn off BloodHound. Okay. So if you look, this line marks the first N bar indicator. And if you count back, you can see we have 3 down bars previously. And even though price is moving down, but you can see these are dojis. These are dojis, so it didn't count the dojis. And that's probably because of this setting, I'm assuming. So I decided to show this not so much as an exit, but I know a bunch of traders like to count the number of bars moving in a direction, moving in a certain direction before they'll take the trade. So this N bars indicator would be, I think, helpful for doing that, for counting the number of bars in either up or down. So let's see, N bars up, dash down. So to use this indicator, we can see on the side here, it's a sub indicator. It's an indicator on the sub panel. So we can use the threshold solver to look for a signal as an indicator. So let's go to threshold. And since I have a bunch of down bars being marked, the red one, or the up bars, are marked by green, the color green there. So let's just work on the shorts on the N bar down. So let's jump down to the ends, N bar down. And I'm just using the default settings, and you can see, there we go, it has just one plot, this trigger plot. And really I'm not interested in using it for a long, so I'll just turn that off. And oh, I can't. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So and if we look at this, when this indicator is marking the chart, it's giving you a value of 1 on the output here. So I'm going to look for a threshold of 1, or if you want to build in a little safety factor, you could go 0.99, just a hundredth below. And negative 0.99. And actually, since I'm just looking at getting shorts out of this, I'm actually just going to set this to 0, because I just put the 99 in there by habit. So because we're only using the N bars down indicator, so we can only get short signals out of this, unless you want to use counting down bars to go long, but it seems a bit counterintuitive. And oh, that's right. Let's see. Let's wait. And I'm missing something here. 3. All right, that looks correct. Let's see, that's not inverted. There we go. For some reason the solver wanted a value up here. So, all right, great. Set that to 0, and So let me set these all up to -1. All right, let me close this out, and I'm going to hit F5 on the chart just to refresh things, just in case. And oh, yes. Okay, here's my mistake. I'm so used to working with, indicators that float above and below the 0 line. And and working with BloodHound so long, I'm used to working with negative values. But this indicator is giving me a +1, right? Even though it's counting down bars, which I'm so used to getting a -1 working with BloodHound and other indicators, right? Like, the MACD, when you're below 0, shorts are in the negative range. So I just was not paying attention. So even the down bar counts are giving us a +1, along with the up bar counts are giving us a +1 as well right here. So that was my mistake. That's usually how it goes. So let me set this back to 0. There, okay, yep. As soon as I figured out how this indicator worked, I got BloodHound to work with it. All right, great. So now you can see the threshold solver working with the N bars down indicator. You can see right here, so we got 1, 2, 3 bars down, and it marked it. So, and then over here, we had a couple of dojis which didn't count according to, I believe, according to the indicator settings. And then we got 1, 2, 3 down bars, and then marked it. So, all right. So that so much wasn't an exit. It was really more just a demonstration from some of you guys out there that want to count the number of up bars or down bars before you go in. And you know what? I'm going to skip over this PPO crossover. I just thought it was a neat indicator to show you guys, but in theory, it's just the same thing as using this parabolic SAR. And it is this indicator down here that seemed to be kind of neat, in kind of identifying exit points. But I will just skip that for now. And so let's take what we have here and put it into Raven. So I'm going to close out of this interface so it saves back to the file. All right, so that saved all my work back to the file. So when NinjaTrader locked up on me, I lost everything because I never ended up exiting the interface to save all that back to the file. So before you add Raven to the chart, make sure that I recommend that you close all of your BloodHound interfaces. So that way it saves your work back to the file. And, okay, I'm going to have to steal the data feed from Jeremy. So, all right, you can see the strategy button is disabled. And as soon as my data feed connected, the strategy button enabled itself. But now I need to wait for the data to load. There we go. Okay, so with a data feed connected, I can now bring up the strategy window. Pull Raven down here. And let's load up the template. All right, so there's today's workshop. And there's all of our, all right. Oh, look at that. I'm rushing through it and I didn't name these here. Bad habit. All right, and I'm gonna take a look at the logic template that I'm interested in. I always like to take a look just to make sure that I didn't leave it accidentally in a broken state. You know, like sometimes I'll leave it like this. You know, so I always check it to make sure I got my leaders in the right spot and everything. And I didn't leave something disconnected because I was doing some testing or whatever. So make sure that our entries are good. And then I could also check to see what my exit, whatever exit I want to use. So let's see. We'll use this 5-bar count. Oops. And yep, that looks good. Everything looks like it's still connected. All right, put it back on the MACD. All right, so I'm going to set my entry logic here. So I'm going to lock it to an entry. If I leave this on none, then it leaves my entry unlocked, and I can change the entry strategy on the fly by using the pull-down menu on the chart here. So if I leave this on none, I can use the pull-down menu to select what entry template I want to use. And let's see if I remember. Yeah, see, I have 2 entries. I have this entry, and then I also have this entry here. But I'm just going to lock it to this one. And unfortunately, there's no way currently to change your exit logic on the fly. So we're going to lock it to the exit at 5 bars. And we can leave, I'm going to leave all the threshold as the default. Enter only when flat. You know, I might get a reversal signal before an exit signal, so I'm going to leave this to false. And yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look at the historical results. So I'll leave this on true. And so so there was a running theme in the first 3 questions here, and that is we want to exit if losing more than 20 ticks. So we can see the measurement unit here is defaulted to ticks, and so we have a stop loss. So I'm going to set the stop loss to 20 ticks, and we want to turn on a trailing stop. And I'm going to leave the profit target. I'm just going to leave it to 0, and I'll let our exits. I'll let the exit logic, you know, take the profits, or let the stop loss take the profits. All right, and you know, there's a bunch of other stuff going on here, which this is all NinjaTrader stuff. So NinjaTrader has their own workshop video that explains each of these parameters here for you. And since I'm running out of time, I'll have to leave it at that. And so I need to enable this, turn it on, and click OK. Yep. And off we go. And if we're lucky, this might put us in a trade. Now you'll probably notice that there, shoot, I wish NinjaTrader hadn't locked up before, because I had a nice, neat little setup on that other chart where I had my exits and entries on the same area. So what I did is, you can see it where we have BloodHound up here. So this BloodHound up here, let me let me switch it over to the entry so you can see it. All right, so we have BloodHound up here. So this instance of BloodHound is the indicator that's on the chart, and the one down below is the strategy that's running, or Raven that's running on the chart. And so you can set, like I could set the indicator on the chart, I could set it up to show me my exits that I'm looking for. So let's see, 5-bar. Yeah, so there. So you can see down below, Raven gave us this entry, and then 5 bars later, this is our exit that's counting 5 bars later. So, and what I did is I moved, well, actually, yeah, I can build this real quick. So what I did is I changed the color. Let's see, orange, where did it go? I had to use gold. There we go, there's gold. And I'll set the short confidence to gold as well. So now the indicator that's on the chart, right, I have it set to, oops, there we go. I have it set to show my exit at 5 bars, and I set it, I like yellow to see my exits. And then Raven down here is marking the entries. And what I can also do is put them on the same sub channel. So let's see, where is, there we go.
Order pending.
All right, and we actually got into a trade here. Cool. Oh, so here's another thing. Let me sorry. So you can see how this BloodHound here. You don't see any of the parameters. All you see are lines and plots. There's no parameters. If I scroll up and down, that tells me this is Raven. I mean, yeah, this is Raven calling up BloodHound. So this BloodHound is being called from Raven, whereas this second BloodHound down here, if I scroll up, right, I can see all the normal settings in here, all the normal parameters. So this is actually the indicator on the chart, whereas this BloodHound is being called from Raven. And that's why you can't change anything in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this BloodHound, that's the indicator on the chart, and I'm going to change its panel. So let's see, it's moving 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll move it on to, I think it's going to be the, no, it must be the 6th. Let's see if I put them together. Yeah, there we go. So now you can see we have Raven's entry signals and the exit signals in the same panel.
Order filled.
So, and great. So now you can see it trading. Well, unfortunately, it went long right at the top, exited us out 5 bars later. So, let's see. So Tony is asking, can you switch your exit strategy just like you can select the entry? No, Tony, I just said earlier when I was setting up Raven that that's not possible. This currently it's not possible with Raven. So
order pending.
You can see you only have one pull down menu, and this pull down menu applies to the entry signals only. There isn't one for the exits. So let me make sure I get this on the right one. And let's see, Bob, is that panel on the right included in BloodHound? So this panel, no. So Bob, I think you're talking about the orange panel here. So this is the new update to Raven that comes with version 1.103. So 03, the 03 update. This is kind of like what you'll see that has been upgraded with the 03 update. Is this new panel with Raven. So we kind of basically took a small piece out of Falcon and just implemented it into Raven. And so now you have a button here to disable Raven just by clicking a button. So I can click this and the entries are now disabled. Raven will not trade anymore. I can click it and enable, turn Raven back on, and then you have a close position button as well. So, because one of the things is that with NinjaTrader, it has built in some safety factors. So if you have a strategy running like we do here with Raven, and if you, let's see, let me get rid of this one, remove that previous one. Right, so you can see we're in a position, let's see, unrealized. So let's see,
order filled.
Yep, we were in a position. Well, it exited it now, but if your strategy had a, oh, darn it, I can't show you now. Shoot, I should have told Jeremy I needed the data feed. He didn't realize that. Anyways, so if Raven has you in a position and you manually right-click and flatten your position, NinjaTrader disables your strategy, thinking that you closed out your position because there was a problem with your code. And so it's a safety feature, and it turns off, it disables your strategy, and so therefore it disables Raven. And so now, well, shoot, yeah, I need the data feed. But on the panel that we had, there was that close position button. So that allows you to close out without NinjaTrader disabling Raven and turning it off. So, so Tony, you're asking what happened to the button when you click on it if you have a trade going. Well, which button, Tony? There was two buttons there. So, well, and I basically explained both. So if you already have a position on and you disable or hit the disable entries, it only disables the entries, right? It doesn't do anything else but turn off your entry. So Raven won't enter the market anymore, but it'll still leave your position on. So I think that's probably what you're asking there, Tony. All right, so Alvin's asking, will you be able to run ATM strategies with the new? Yes. Yes, shoot, I need a data feed. And Jeremy's trying to, do some testing. I'm sure Jeremy's probably testing Raven right now. The new updates coming. But yeah, the ATM feature is still available in this new release of Raven. So, all right, Tony, with this feature, I don't need another chart open anymore. I guess not. But as you saw, there were two. Raven did actually take two trades while we were watching it, and you didn't see the flags. So if you still want to see those chart trader flags, you will need a second chart open with the chart trader turned on to see those trade flags. So all right, well guys, it is running really late for me, so I need to wrap it up there. And it looks like I got through all your questions. So you guys are awful quiet today, so I guess that kind of tells me when you don't ask questions that you guys were just, this was a good session. You guys were just glued to your monitors. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys. I'm going to wrap it up here, and you have a good weekend. All right. Bye-bye.